Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us for our Wednesday weather update recorded on April the 16th. We've got a subtropical storm on the way, as you well know. Here is the stormy system to the north of New Zealand, named a tropical cyclone called Tam, T-A-M. That was yesterday, but by the time you're watching this video, as we go through Wednesday afternoon and evening, it's likely to lose its tropical cyclone status. So very short-lived tropical storm. The fact that it was named doesn't change anything to do with the forecast. That was already kind of factored in a few days ago. So we're seeing this storm, as I say, move very quickly out of the tropics at over 50 kilometers an hour. Compare that with Tropical Cyclone Alfred over in Queensland a couple of weeks ago. That was moving at walking speed. So this is rocketing towards us, but then it runs into high pressure, and it's that motion that creates that windy nor'easter, and then the low itself stalls in the Tasman Sea. So it is going to slow down as it moves on in. Rainfall. All right, we'll kick off with this first of all because there is rain in both of the main islands. This is not just for the top of New Zealand, so we'll try and break it down. Here is the 7-day departure from normal. This is brought to you by resupply.co.nz. Look at the rainfall in the blue. That is wetter than usual compared to previous years at this time of April. So the darker blue shaded areas, that's where we're expecting to see some pretty heavy rain. Northland, Coromandel Peninsula, Bay of Plenty, East Cape, Nelson. Those are the main areas of concern. Now the West Coast is also in that bluer side, but to be fair with you, the West Coast can tolerate quite a bit of rain. Not to diminish the seriousness of a rain warning though, but just letting you know, the rain on the West Coast, you can handle that a little better than places like Nelson, which is typically quite dry. So we've got some rain moving through, but notice there's white and sort of a pink shading in many other parts. Western parts of the North Island, the lower North Island, and much of the eastern and southern parts of the South Island. Rainfall for you is not going to be that great. So here is the animation to sort of make sense of all of it. Going through till Easter Monday, you can see the low up here, some of that wet weather already arriving. So let's animate it. You can see the tropical low coming through, and then these northerly rain events feeding in this rainfall to the top of the North Island, affecting the top of the South Island as well, along with the West Coast. But it's this northerly flow that may be more of a concern for the North Island. So Northland, parts of Auckland, Coromandel Peninsula, Bay of Plenty, East Cape, and over towards the Gisborne, Tairāwhiti area could be seeing really big rainfall, 200 to 300 millimeters or more. It might go off the key because of this slow moving rain. You're going to see in a moment why. But look at the lower North Island and look at the eastern and southern parts of the South Island. Not as much rain for you further down on that rainfall key. Here's a closer view. This is from the UK Met Office. They provide some rain maps for our part of the world. And again, you can see very similar to the previous map, which was from the European Union. You can see again, heavy falls, Bay of Plenty really lighting up into that 200 to 300 millimeter mark, as does the northwest corner, of the South Island. So heavy rain into the northeast of the North Island and northwest of the South Island. Those are the main sort of concerns. And along with the rain, we've got the wind, already windy here in Auckland, big gusts coming through. There is a chance of some power outages today as those winds pick up. We've already seen that around Northland when we recorded this. So this is how it looks around about 1 o'clock today, Wednesday. Red basically means gale force. You're seeing those gale force winds blowing through the top there. The wind speed in here is in knots, but kilometers an hour, you're talking 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour with gusts going above that. Worst of the winds are up here in the darker shading. So let's animate this. It's from this afternoon through till Saturday morning. What you're going to see as they low track southwards, it sort of gets pulled out into the Tasman Sea. As it does that, the worst of the winds come through, and now it's interacting with the high pressure zone east of New Zealand. That creates the squash zone that you can see over the North Island. That windy nor'easter comes down into the South Island, but mostly it's for the North Island. And as we end here, as we go through into Saturday now, you can see the two different sets of weather that we talked about on Monday. The squash zone out here, that's the windy nor'easter, and then you got the low itself with another set of wind. But as that low comes in, it is going to weaken. So let's have another look at that. This is a slower animation. This one shows the peak gusts from 1 o'clock today to 1 o'clock Friday. So where you see the purple shading, that is up around the 90 Ks, 100 Ks an hour mark or on the lower scale there, 50 to 60 knots. So I'll animate this now for you, and you'll get the idea as it starts to come through. This is the later part of Wednesday, and now we're ticking over into Thursday. So the purple shaded areas are Northland, Auckland, Great Barrier Island, certainly along the Kaimai Ranges, eastern Waikato, my hometown of Te Aroha, likely to see some pretty strong gusts. If they haven't already developed now, they are very likely to today, and certainly peaking as we go through Thursday. So we end here as we go through into Friday. Windy weather in that squash zone, pushing into Bay of Plenty, Coromandel, and it's easing further up the country. And the rest of the worst winds are out around the low, and that's mostly offshore. Waves. So we've got the big wind, we've got the lower air pressure that's going to certainly generate some very big waves. Let's take a look and see what is happening. Here's how we look at the moment around about the middle of the day. You're talking about 2, 3, 4 meter waves already developing. Let's now animate this, and you'll start to see as the tropical low, subtropical storm moves out there to the Tasman Sea, those big waves in the pink shading, 6 meter waves or higher, start to come in to this eastern side of New Zealand. So Northland, parts of Auckland, certainly the Coromandel Peninsula along the eastern side, western Bay of Plenty, in fact, all of Bay of Plenty, and then it moves out further over into the Saturday period. Even then, when it's sort of easing back, you're still talking about waves up to 3 or 4 meters here and there as we go through the day. So our advice would be to stay away from the beach. Here is tonight's setup. So let's get into the actual forecast. So by tonight, this should be an ex-tropical cyclone. That just means the tropical fuel in it has gone, but now it's going to deepen into a stronger storm off to the northwest of New Zealand. There's another low pressure system, and it's all kind of dragging it out. Interesting to note, the shading here, right next to the center of the actual part of what was Tropical Cyclone Tam, is when we're still recording this. These are 120 kilometre an hour winds sustained. So we are very lucky that that low is getting pulled out to this other system in the Tasman. It would be a lot more serious if this was just straight on into the country. And you can see the easterly winds there between low pressure and high pressure. So midnight tonight, including 24 hours of rainfall up to tonight. You can see the heavy rain starting to come into Northland and maybe some parts of Auckland. Bit of rain also around the Gisborne area. Otherwise, you're seeing just showers and drizzle patches. Normally, we only show you a rain map for the middle of the day. This shows all of the 24 hours, which means if you're in the pale blue for the entire day, you're not going to be seeing a huge amount. Now, some of these totals might lift up a wee bit more than the map suggests if you do get a heavier downpour, but Wednesday, for the most part, isn't the major rain day, except for the very top of New Zealand, up around Northland and the far north. Here is the situation for noon Thursday. So we've got this new low pressure system. It's got a couple of beady eyes there. It's going to form into one new low. And this is what all tropical storms do if they keep their energy up once they leave the tropics. It's called a tropical cyclone because it's in the tropics, got a warm center to it. Down here gets a cold center, and that makes the center spread out and the severe weather spread out. So this map is quite a good one because it shows in the bright white shading here over Auckland and eastern Waikato, Coromandel ranges and the Kaimai ranges, and also eastern Northland, those damaging winds as that squash zone between low pressure in the Tasman, high pressure east of us, that moves on in. The storm itself, offshore, that's not causing the problem too much. It's between the low and the high. That's where we're seeing the worst of the winds. By lunchtime tomorrow, same timestamp, that is the windy weather. You can certainly see all the isobars jammed up, windy for the top half of the North Island. The South Island, not talking about you as much. As I always say in these videos, if I'm not talking about your region, there's probably not a lot to talk about. But you're seeing cloud build up, patchy kind of light rain or showers or drizzle patches. It won't add up to much. That is pushing down along here, but it could still be a cloudy kind of wet day in some spots. Certainly the further north you go, the more likely it is to be wet. Dry spells in the southwest corner of the North Island and around a big part of the South Island as we get up to lunchtime Thursday. Now, along with this squash zone, you've got these thunderstorm risks. Now, it says on here on the red, possibly severe. Sometimes in New Zealand, we can have the severe thunderstorm cloud build-up and downpour, but without the actual flash of lightning and the rumble of thunder. So this could produce some heavier extra falls on top of that rain map that we've just showed you. And by tomorrow night, you can see the heavy rain from that squash zone as well, moving in to the Coromandel Peninsula, Western Bay of Plenty. It should start to ease back around parts of Auckland and Northland, but it may take into Friday for that to really happen. So it's all moving through as we go through Thursday night, and that rain pushes further down into the North Island and now more into the northwestern corner of the South Island. Still dry and mild at the south of New Zealand. Here is noon Good Friday, plus 24 hours of rainfall up to the lunchtime. Heavy rain, very slowly moving from Northlands and Auckland, where it is on Thursday, into Coromandel, into Bay of Plenty, and towards the northeastern corner of the North Island. So heavy falls are slowly moving from west to east with that northerly flow, and that's that northerly that's going to produce the higher rainfall totals, again also around the top of the South Island. Cloudy with a northerly breeze for most other parts of New Zealand, probably still fairly cloudy even in the south, even though it's dry for you. Lunchtime Saturday, the low is now weakening, so it's kind of like a wheel stuck in the mud, and it's just gradually falling apart. But as it falls apart, the rain is still with us, and that's what you see on the west coast. Plenty of rain, and it's clipping that northwest corner of the South Island. That's why we're a bit concerned about the rainfall there. It's not a good region for dealing with very heavy rain. Some regions can cope with a big downpour, others not so well. This could be one to keep an eye on, along with Bay of Plenty and the East Cape area, where that rain is still tropical as it feeds on in. And again on Saturday afternoon, the low pressure system out of the tropics leaving behind subtropical air, and that could produce, again, some thunderstorms. Not necessarily severe, but just that chance of a downpour that's not forecast. You might just see a few showers. It could be quite a nice day in some places. Then you get a big downpour and it changes things. So that's mainly around the North Island, that risk, but maybe a little part of the northern and western sides of the South Island. Now look at Easter Sunday. Ballooning out to our east is this huge high pressure system. That is why we've got the wind developing at the moment and the rain. And the rain is being held up by the high. Can't move into it. This is a atmospheric river where you see it like a funnel. You hear that term all the time. I don't use it very often, but to me this is a classic example of it. Tropical weather up here feeding down. The purple you're seeing there, that's 100 millimeters or more in just the 24 hours there. Rain still carries on the west coast and around Nelson. That's why this is a bit of an unusual system. Not everyone's got severe weather. That's clear and obvious, but we are seeing these areas of repeated rainfall where it's just not moving along. And even by Monday of next week, I could hear your groans for some of you, seeing that this rain is still stuck in this area. Now the high is the controlling feature. If the high moves further to the east or shrinks a little bit, all of this stuff over New Zealand moves further quickly along, out away from us. But for now, it looks remaining where it is. And our final map for Tuesday, final forecast map, at this stage, this low to the northeast doesn't look like it's coming directly into us, but certainly with all this low pressure around, one to keep an eye on. But look at the rain still falling in that northeastern part of the North Island. So that is several days in a row of rain falling there. That's why you're hearing a lot of talk about this system, even though not everyone has got necessarily bad weather on the way. As we said yesterday, alert.info for all the alerts around the country, police, fire, the roads, the weather, you name it. They've got you covered there. And also the MetService with all the warnings. This was the warnings and watches that were out when we recorded this around about lunchtime Wednesday. This map could get bigger. So keep up to date with the MetService and also with us at Weather Watch. Before I go, not everywhere in the country's got severe weather. Some of the best parts of New Zealand this weekend for the long weekend, maybe at the southern end of New Zealand around Queenstown, Southland and those sorts of areas, Otago. Might not be perfect, but compared to other parts of New Zealand, give you a shout out. That's all from me. We'll catch you again tomorrow, Thursday, as we take a closer look at the incoming severe weather. We'll see you then.